Well, hey, North Park Community Church. Pastor Luke here with another episode of First Looks. And we are continuing on in our series through the book of Ruth. And today we are in chapter 2. Each chapter serves as almost as a separate episode of this story with a different kind of focal point and contribution to the overarching narrative, which is, again, just beautiful. This is a beautiful story. It's a hopeful story. It's a story that is a love story, but it's also a story that teaches us so much about God and the way that God interacts with his people. And so maybe it's important to remember where we left off after Ruth 1. Ruth 1 ends with Naomi changing her name to Mara, or bitter, and Ruth returning to Bethlehem as widows, as really impoverished widows, with maybe I'll also include here with shame because of Israel's relationship with Moab. Okay. So with that, where we left off, we now pick up in 2:1 here. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man. Interesting. This word right here is Gibor, which means it's the word used for a mighty man, meaning a warrior, a mighty man of valor. So David has his famous mighty men, things like that. So in this particular context, it's obviously not referring to Boaz as a warrior, but he is a man of stature, worth, honor in community. There is a possibility that he is or was a warrior. It's possible that he went to battle in underneath the leadership of one of the judges. Remember, that's when the book of Ruth is set against in the time of the judges. So it is possible that this is a referencing maybe certain military status, but in the context, many commentators and your translators they see fit to not make that connection, but to connect it to his worth and his character, a man of stature and noble in the community and beloved. The next thing that I would put out here is this beginning to right here. This is the narrator. The narrator letting us know it's almost kind of foreshadowing for us readers, and so the narrator is letting us know, look out for this man named Boaz, and He's from the clan of Elimelech, which is going to play a part later on here in the significance of this man. And then relative of her husbands. Okay, good. So we continue. Ruth, the Moabite, said to Naomi. This is important here. This is repeatedly used to designate Ruth. And that's significant because this is a 4-chapter book. She's the only person named Ruth. It's not like Mary, Mary Magdalene versus Mary, the mother of Jesus. It's not like you have 6, 7 Marys going around and you need to differentiate them. It's not like you have a couple different Ruths in the story. You have one Ruth. And so the fact that the narrator keeps identifying her as the Moabite is it's keeping right in front of us the significance of her identity as a foreigner, for one, but also a Moabite foreigner who is one of the most hated of the surrounding people groups around Israel. It's letting us know that the act of kindness that will come is to those who least would deserve it, according to just the custom of the time. And so Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor." So this right here, let me go to the field, might make us want to say that she knows that she's going to Boaz, but because of how the story unfolds, especially towards the end of the chapter, we see that this was not prearranged to go to Boaz's field. She happened upon it, and so she's just looking to go out to a field to try to glean, and this was a part of Israel's laws, their civil laws. We find it in Leviticus and Deuteronomy that you were not supposed to collect and harvest everything that you could. You were supposed to leave the corners for the widows, the orphans, the fatherless, the widows, the orphans, the foreigners, and the foreigners, and so and the poor and needy. And so God had in His law for His people stipulations to care for the impoverished. It was government aid, you could say, built into Israel's law system. And on top of that, not only were they supposed to not glean from or not harvest the corners, they were supposed to leave whatever they dropped as well behind, so that people could follow behind the harvesters and collect up that for themselves. So that's what Ruth is looking to do. She's looking to rely on the generosity of these Israelites, knowing who she is. She's gonna just what else can she do? She has no other option, and so she says, "And whoever will show me favor, I'll follow." And so she seems to have an awareness of the possibility that she has not shown favor, and she might get booted from certain fields and have to go try other fields and things like that. She seems prepared for this. And Naomi says, "All right, go, my daughter." And notice here, no in law. We saw daughter-in-law show up quite a bit in chapter 1 in talking about Ruth and Orpah, but now that's been dropped. They are family. Ruth has so clung to Naomi and covenanted to her and taken on her people and her God, and that now they are family. And it's not even daughter-in-law anymore. It's now daughter. And so Ruth set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. Okay. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem. Okay, some things happening here. So she happened to come. In Hebrew, it is literally, she happened to chance. She happened to chance. So we only have, the one word happened here, but there is a second word in the Hebrew that is simply that: chance, luck, coincidence, which is it's an intentional play in from the narrator to it's a literary technique here, to where it's like it's communicating to us this was unintentional. She just happened upon it. Just wow, what a stroke of luck. This was that she just so happened to come to Boaz's field. But we, the readers who are reading Ruth in the context of the whole scriptures, and we get the narrator's additional information, and we read the story all the way through, we know that this is not happen chance. This is the providence of God. This is his kindness to Naomi and Ruth. There's no such thing as chance. I mean, this is how we experience it, isn't it? I just happened to bump into so and so at the store. It was nice. It was nice to run into them. I haven't seen them in a while, and we just say, we just by chance. Just random. But that's what we see in Ruth is how the seemingly random chance occurrences are actually God's weaving together his plan for Ruth's life, and his plan to show covenantal kindness to her, his chesed to her. So she happened by chance to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech, at the time that he's coming from Bethlehem. Let me stay on the red here. Behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem. So not only did she find herself at Boaz's field, she did so just when he was visiting his workers. Okay. Just by chance, he was here visiting his workers, checking in. He owns this, but he doesn't work it because he's a man of wealth, and so he is coming out of Bethlehem, because Bethlehem would have been the town, where the people live, and where you might have markets and things like that. But they would have left the town proper, so to speak, to go out into the fields that surround the town. And so he's coming out of Bethlehem from town. He's coming from town just to come check on how things are going. It's harvest time. Let's see how the harvest is looking. Let's see how the workers are doing. He's just managing his property is what he's doing. And when he comes, he says to the reapers, look at this: "The Lord be with you." And they answered, "The Lord bless you." And this is significant, because, oh, we see Boaz to be a faithful man of kindness. And we see it because the Lord be with you, and the Lord bless you in response. We see the relationship that he has with his workers. We see that he's coming out to bring blessing to them. That it's a good working environment for these guys. Yeah, and so he's going to be an embodiment of God's chesed, in the whole storyline here. So then Boaz said to his young man, who was in charge of the reapers, so the manager of the field, "Whose young woman is this?" He sees a woman that he hasn't met before. It's not one of his servants. He has servant women that we'll hear about later, but this isn't one of them. And he said, "Who is this?" And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered him and said, She is the young Moabite woman." Okay, so there we go. Moab. The young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. Don't forget it. Don't forget who she is. Don't forget where she's coming from. There are actually laws in, I want to say it's Leviticus. No, maybe it's Deuteronomy. That says that a Moabite is not permitted into the assembly of God's people. And so they were. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. You're not to marry Moabites either, because of their track record of seducing the Israelite men and luring them away from Yahweh. And so all of this is charged language here that's used intentionally. And so the manager says is the one who came back with Naomi and from Moab, and she said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves of the reapers." So he came, and she continued from early morning until now, except for just a brief rest. And Ruth is constantly presented as admirable, which is why Ruth is after Proverbs in Hebrew Bible of Old Testament, because Proverbs 31 is the virtuous woman who goes out into the fields and works, and her children rise up and call her blessed, and all of that, and so some Jews have it's kind of speculated a little bit, I guess, that Ruth is the narrative embodiment of what Proverbs 31 depicts. And so we see her out there working hard, working really hard, to provide for her and her mother-in-law, Naomi. And so Boaz said to Ruth, "Now, listen, my daughter, do not go and glean in another field." And so this is probably indicative of age difference. Boaz is probably older, and probably significantly older. And he says, "Do not go and glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my," here we go, "my young women." So he's got other women servants. Ruth is not one. That's why he's surprised that he sees her there. He says, "Let your eyes be on this field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you?" This is really great. This is mentioned a significant amount of times in this short chapter. This concept right here. Boaz is protecting Ruth from abuse. And again, we'll see this show up. He'll repeat it later on, and then Naomi will acknowledge that this was a very real possibility. That when she goes out into the fields, being a Moabite woman, hated by the Israelites, it is not a crazy idea that she would be certainly the recipient of mean things being said to her, awful insults. It's also there is a likelihood of either physical abuse, throwing stones at her or something like that, but more likely that she is the recipient of sexual abuse. And so Boaz he knows that. He knows what some of the young guys are like out there who are working the field. And he knows that this kind of thing happens. And so he preventively makes sure that all of these guys know that they better not lay a finger on Ruth. And so it's a really noble and really a really great attribute from Boaz. He doesn't just care for her need of food. He cares for her dignity. He cares for her personhood, even though, again, she's that Moabite. And so we see this beautiful breaking down of the walls of distinction and separation by the way that he extends chesed love to her. And he says, when you're thirsty, go and drink the water from what the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face. And she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and she said to him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me, since I'm a foreigner?" She's astounded by his kindness. I'm using the word kindness because chesed is loving kindness, steadfast loving kindness, but it's love. We talked about this last week. It's love. It's mercy. It's commitment. It's all of these things bound. It's goodness. It's all of this bound up together in this one idea called chesed. And but she's astounded at it. She doesn't deserve it. She shouldn't receive it by all cultural standards. Not this much, not to this degree. Boaz answered her, and he said, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother in your native land and come to people that you did not know." And so he says, I know. I've heard the stories. The town, it's a small town. It's Bethlehem. It's probably, it might be somewhere between 150, 250 people who live there. And they don't have TV to watch, so they talk. They talk about everything going on in everybody's lives. And so, and especially a man of stature in the town would have certainly been someone who got all of the information. And he said, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me. Fully told to me. You sacrificed everything. You gave up everything to take care of your mother-in-law and to come make this foreign land and these foreign people and this foreign God your land, your people, your God. And then he says, "The Lord repay you for what you have done, and full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have taken refuge." This is awesome. Yeah. There's there's so much that we could say here. Um, we know that when we have all capitals, that it is the covenant name for God, Yahweh, um, and He's asking for blessing on a Moabite, someone who is not the covenant people of God, um, and he's the God of Israel, not Moab. But you've changed your identity from Moabite to someone of Israel, and he says, and so you have come under his wings for refuge. So this is like a mother bird in a nest covering the her baby birds. That's what he's saying. He's saying you have found your safe haven under the protection of God's wings. And then she said, I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me. You have comforted. This is what he does. He brings comfort, and he has spoken kindly to your servant, even though I am none of your servants, not one of your servants, and shows again the quality of Boaz. Yeah. And a mealtime. This is around noon. This is lunch. So at lunch, Boaz said to her, come here and eat some of the bread and dip your morsel in the wine. And so she sat by the reapers, and he passed her. Boaz serves Ruth the roasted grain. And so this is just incredible here. This right here is Boaz honors and dignifies Ruth. Why wouldn't you want to marry him by the end of this thing? He's a top-notch guy. And then when it was over, when she was satisfied, she ate all until she was satisfied. She arose to go glean, and Boaz instructed his young men, saying, let her glean among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some of the bundles for her, leave it to glean, and do not rebuke her. So again, we see Boaz's preemptive care for Ruth, knowing that she will not naturally be the recipient of it, being a widowed Moabite woman. If he doesn't lay out these instructions, he knows that there's a good chance that she's treated very poorly. And so she gleaned in the field until evening. She works all day, and then she beat out what she had gleaned. Okay, so you collect the stalks and things like that, but then you beat the stalks to get the grain from it, and when she got that, it was about an ephah of barley, which this is the weight of an ephah. Could have it varies, and so it would have been somewhere between probably 30 to 50 pounds, and she's carrying this home, which is a ton. That's a ton of barley. And so she took it up and went to the city. I went back to Bethlehem. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her what food she had left after being satisfied. So the good food from lunch, she kept some, and she gave that to her mother-in-law. And after her mother-in-law said to her, where did you glean? Where did you glean today? This is an incredible harvest. I never could have imagined that you would have come back with this much. But just another indicator that Ruth didn't know that she chanced upon Boaz's field. And meaning way back in the beginning, the narrator let us know that it was Boaz's field, but Ruth, she chanced upon it, so she didn't know that that it was Boaz's field. And where have you worked? And then Naomi says, "Blessed be the man who took notice of you, because of this immense kindness that she's come back with." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and she said, "The man with whom I work today is Boaz." And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed by the Lord." Here we go. Look at this. This is it right here. The meat and potatoes of the whole book. There it is. Whose kindness? Whose kindness? Whose hesed kindness has not forsaken. Don't forget, in Ruth 1, she could not see God's kindness anywhere. But now, in due course, she sees it. She sees it. There's really important significance for this. But then also notice there are no miracles, but Boaz's kindness is attributed to God's kindness. Whoa, there is some preaching significance in that right there. That'll come out for sure. So Naomi said to her, "The man is a close relative of one of ours and one of our redeemers." This is Goel in Hebrew. Goel, and it means that he's a relative who is close enough that it could be requested of him. It was expected of a brother. If he was Elimelech's brother, then it would be expected that he would marry either Naomi or Ruth. Ruth being more likely because she's the one of childbearing age. But the purpose in God's command for this was so that the deceased's name could live on as the brother produces an heir, if there wasn't an heir. There was financial responsibility there as well. So even if you weren't going to redeem them for the sake of producing a male heir for the name to live on, there would still be the responsibility to make sure that they were cared for financially. There were multiple ways that a redeemer would interact with family members to take care of one another. And she says he's one who is close enough in the family relations that it could be requested of him to take Ruth as a husband. That's what we'll see in chapter 3. And Ruth the Moabite. So who would redeem a Moabite? That's the question that the author wants us to think about, and that's why it's phrased the way that it's phrased. And she says, and Ruth the Moabite says, besides, he has said to me, you shall keep close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest. He invited her back. So stay the whole harvest. Naomi said to Ruth, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, lest, here it is again, lest in another field you be assaulted. And so the fact that this keeps coming up indicates that this was legitimately a real concern, And so Ruth kept close to the young women of Boaz, gleaning until the end of the barley and wheat harvests, and she lived with her mother-in-law. So both of these would have been 6 to 7 weeks timeline. So for about 2 months, about 2 months, and then we get to chapter 3. So that's it. That's the story. This is incredible. It's just filled with a ton of stuff, ton of content within the characters, within the way the law is at play. The Mosaic law is at play in this. The way the in Israel's history in relationship to Moab. There's so many facets to this story that all come together to make just, again, a beautiful story. So that's what we got. Hope this is helpful for you, and I look forward to preaching this message that will be called Glimmers of Hope. And coming from the hope deferred from last week in Ruth 1, hope that has been set aside to now seeing glimmers of hope. I'm really excited to preach it. So I love you, church, and I will see you soon.